What's up YouTube, how goes it? Welcome to another review. Today we're having a look at the Acer Aspire 5 15-inch laptop. This guy is rocking Intel's latest 11th generation Intel Core i5 processor, 8GB of speedy DDR4 RAM. We've also got a 512GB solid state drive, Intel's latest integrated Iris Xe graphical chipset, and yes, it does come with the latest Wi-Fi and Bluetooth standard. And of course, to go with that, we have a full HD 1080p screen on board. Now, the Acer Aspire 5 is competing in a fiercely competitive mid-range segment of laptops, and I mean it's seriously competitive out there with all these other brands making some pretty awesome laptops. We're gonna see if the Acer Aspire 5 has what it takes to shine amongst all these laptops, and whether or not, of course, it's worth your hard-earned cash. As always guys, if you enjoy the content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel. We've got all kinds of quality content right here, and let's get started. Starting off with a super quick unboxing. As you can see, Acer, like the rest of the PC industry, has no creativity when it comes to creating a unique unboxing experience. That basically means you get a generic looking cardboard box with the Acer branding. Once you remove the content seal itself, inside you'll find a number of items. First and foremost, a green sign saying stop and register. Past that, of course, you have a laptop, which happens to be the Aspire 5. Once you remove the packaging itself, here it is in a light gray color, but we'll come back to that in just a second. Beyond that, of course, you have a 45-watt charging adapter. Unfortunately, it is a proprietary pin, meaning no USB-C charging out of the box. Beyond that, you have the wall outlet cable, and finally you have some instruction booklet, quick start guide, and the warranty information, all the usual stuff. That's pretty much it for the unboxing. Coming back to the laptop itself, let's talk about the design. So Acer's laptop in terms of build quality would be somewhere in between decent and good. You've got a mix of premium and standard materials across the overall body. However, primary composition is hard TPU. So in terms of weight, this laptop weighs around 3.9 pounds approximately. It is relatively heavy, and if you are going to be carrying it all day long, you'll definitely feel that added weight, but it's not crazy heavy, and it is still lighter than some of the competition in this segment. With that being said, the top of the laptop has a nice metallic finish. There's no texture. I actually like the smooth gray color finish. Actually, you could argue it's silver, to be honest. But anyway, you have the Acer branding right in the dead center, and that's pretty much it. Also, on the rear side of the laptop, you have the Aspire branding, which looks quite sleek because it's directly on the hinge, and you have the exhaust vents right beneath it. As we make our way to the side of the laptop, I/O diversity is pretty reasonable on this laptop. So of course you have the DC jack, you have a Ethernet jack, a HDMI port, two USB 3.0 ports, one of which is capable of reverse charging. You have a USB-C port. Unfortunately, the USB-C port does not transmit power, which means no, you cannot use it to charge your laptop. On the other side, you have another USB 3.0 port, and of course the headphone jack itself. Also, you have the power and hard drive indicators here as well. The bottom side of the laptop is always the least interesting side of a laptop in general. So you basically have 3 rows worth of passive air intake vents. For whatever reason, Acer has some of these vents blocked. It makes no sense whatsoever, but it is what it is. Also, you'll notice that you actually have 2 speaker grills, one on either side, which definitely confirms this is in fact a stereo speaker setup. We will be doing a sound test later on in the video, so stay tuned for that. And you can see you have a bunch of rubber grips all over the bottom side to keep the laptop in place. When you unfold this laptop, the very first thing you're going to notice is the super spacious palm rest space you have. You can comfortably rest your entire wrist on here and your palm in general, and still have some space to spare, which I appreciate. As you make your way to the trackpad, it's an interesting design choice. So if you look on the top left corner, you'll see you have this black box that is in fact a fingerprint scanner, which is a welcome feature. The overall quality of the trackpad is decent. clicks are nice, subtle, and tactile at the same time. Unfortunately, the surface is made of hard TPU, so it doesn't necessarily have that premium feel. As we make our way to the keyboard itself, I have to say I was pleasantly surprised by Acer. This keyboard is definitely one of the better ones I've seen on laptops. So the keys are nice and tactile, you have a reasonable amount of key travel for each individual key, and overall the keyboard does not feel finicky, loose, or cheap in the slightest. You do have a dedicated 10 key number pad, but it looks like an afterthought because it's honestly super puny, and it's like almost like Acer's like, oh dang, we forgot to add this thing, let's just quickly add it over here. But still, at least you have one. Unfortunately, there are no dedicated media keys, which means all your normal function keys are integrated with your extra functions. Thankfully, the whole keyboard is fully backlit and the backlighting is decent. Past the keyboard, you come to the hinge itself. Now I have to be honest, the hinge is a super important piece of mechanism because it's usually the first one to go out after long-term wear and tear. With that being said, the one over here is pretty decent in quality. It does not wobble too much, especially compared to the likes of HP's 15-inch laptop. That thing could practically be a bobblehead. Of course, I always advise everyone using this laptop to always lift it from the center as opposed to the side. It puts less strain on the body of the hinge itself. When you make your way to the display fitting, you're more or less in line with 2021 standards. The bezels are fairly thin, you have a pretty small chin, more so than some other laptops in this segment, and on the top side you have a mediocre 720p camera. If you're gonna be using this to impress your crush, save yourself the agony and don't do that. But if you're calling mommy or daddy for a quick Zoom call, this webcam will suffice. Next up, let's talk about the display quality. For beginners, this is a 15.6-inch IPS display with the resolution of 1080p, also known as Full HD. This equates to roughly a pixel density of 142 ppi. Pretty reasonable so far. Where things get outright nasty is that 51% sRGB color rating. Honestly, it feels like someone dipped the display in bleach. It's washed out, to say the least. So if you are a normal user who's just doing stuff like web browsing, writing up a Word document, or just going through your computer in general, it's unlikely this is going to affect your productivity in any way or form. However, if you are a power creativity user and you do stuff like photo editing, video editing, or color grading, this display is definitely not adequate for those kind of activities, and you should buy with caution. One thing I will say as a saving grace for this laptop is its reasonable 300 nits peak brightness. While this is nothing to write home about, it's more than sufficient for any indoor setting, and it definitely holds its ground against most outdoor settings as well. Performance. So as I mentioned earlier, this laptop is rocking Intel's newest 11th generation Core i5 processor, and I'm gonna be honest guys, this laptop is about as snappy as it can be when it comes to day-to-day tasks like opening up a web browser, doing some word processing, watching Netflix, or just chilling with your laptop in general. It's not gonna feel any slower or any faster than any other laptop out there for the most part. Where things definitely get interesting is when you start demanding more stuff out of it. Like for example, if you're doing some quick video editing on Adobe Rush, you're gonna notice 1080p video editing is super smooth on this laptop for the most part. However, if you try to do something 4K video editing, you can expect thermal throttling, which will inevitably affect the performance and make it a somewhat choppy experience. Same goes for gaming. You can definitely game on this laptop and the graphics ain't half bad. However, with that being said, prolonged gaming does lead to thermal throttling on this laptop, which can show a drop in frame rates. I quickly want to talk about the temperature and noise for this laptop. So at peak temperatures, this laptop can actually hit a CPU temp of 87 degrees, after which point it very quickly thermal throttles, but it sustains around 65 degrees Celsius in most use cases that have some resource intensive activity going on. It's also worth noting this is a very loud laptop, especially when you're doing anything that's resource intensive like gaming or video editing. Even a simple act of installing a software can trigger the fans, and they're definitely noticeable. As far as battery life goes, it's more or less what you'd expect with a 15-inch laptop. So in our test, with moderate web surfing, watching the occasional video, and just reading articles online at 50% brightness, we got about 9.5 hours of battery life, which in my opinion is pretty reasonable. However, start gaming or video editing and that very quickly can drop to as low as 5 hours. And if you are doing sustained gaming like playing Counter-Strike Go all day long, you're not going to be able to play it all day long on a battery because it can drop to as low as 3 hours of battery life. Lastly, I promised you guys I would talk about the speaker quality, and I have to say the stereo speaker setup is pretty decent. While not the best sounding laptop out there, it doesn't sound bad by any means. In fact, have a quick listen for yourself. So what's my hot take on this laptop? Well, all things considered, priced at $650 USD, this is not a bad bargain at all. Its sleek design and metallic top finish make it look nice and premium to an extent. Also, the high quality tactile keyboard is a pleasure to type on. Furthermore, you have a pretty decent sounding stereo speaker system on this laptop, which is nice for the ears. Unfortunately, some of the not so nice things about this laptop include its super loud fan noise, which you can definitely hear even if you are doing a remotely resource intensive task on here. Also, the less than ideal color accuracy on this display leaves a lot to be desired for creative users who will probably not end up using this laptop in the first place. All in all, if you are a user who plans to use this laptop for web browsing, Netflix, word processing, PowerPoint, or even the occasional gaming, you'll find this is a very well done laptop. However, if you are a creative user who has more color accurate needs, then you may want to stay away from this display. If you guys enjoyed this video, if you found this review to be helpful, consider subscribing to my channel, liking this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Souls Tech, logging out.